Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and I'm continuing on these older 60s, 70s kind of reels. And here's one that I found in a flea market. It's a Fiord Gold Star 360. Looks very much like a Mitchell 300 at the time. Has that same kind of bailing structure in that. I did notice it's made in Japan. And we did one the other day. We did a interceptor, a compact interceptor. And I thought we would continue on this this path of just taking them, opening them up, seeing what they look like, what the engineering is behind them, tuning them up, and seeing if they can't be used again. Now this one is probably what I would call the department store reel at the time. It was probably in Montgomery Ward's or Sears or something like that. Low cost alternative to a Mitchell probably. It's solidly built. This one isn't collectible, or it certainly wouldn't be collectible. There's an anti-reverse tog here that is missing the key. I'm probably going to guess it's even frozen. But let's take this apart. Let's take a look at the reel, see what it is, tune it up, and see if we can make this one go back into service somewhere. So I always start by taking the gear side plate off. Got the screw off handle, and this main gear should slip out of the drive side plate once I pull that off. It's got three screws holding the side case on here. Seem to be nice machine screws here. Metal side plates, solid metal body on this reel. It looks like it's a solid reel for the time. When we take this open, we'll get a look. While we're doing that, you're noticing I'm using a parts tray behind me for all the small pieces and parts. I do that so that I know where to look for them when I go to reassemble the reel. And yeah, this is pretty much a straightforward design. This is almost what we saw in the interceptor that we did not too long ago. A lot of accumulated grease on there, so obviously this hasn't been serviced in a while. This should pull out. It does. It's a nice machine piece of gearing. So let's go ahead and freshen that up. It also has a bushing. There's no bearings in this reel that I can tell of, and it's only got a single side. It doesn't have the through plate that you see a lot of times with the crosswind gear. It relies on that little stud on the back of the main gear to drive the spool up and down. So let's just do a little bit of cleaning here, and then we'll go over to the main body and we'll see what we can do there. So while I'm doing this, I'm looking at the quality of the grease. It's old, it's dry, but I don't see any metal flaking or anything that would indicate that there's been a grind there. I'm also checking while we're doing this on the teeth on the gear. I want to make sure that they're all there, that they're not bent or misshapen in any way. And that's what we're going to check on this side here. And then this also has the function of the anti-reverse dog on the back, where sometimes this is separate. This one would have the clicker, which is right here. The anti-reverse dog would engage with that ridge on the back of the main drive here. So nice engineering, not particularly sophisticated, but certainly serves its purpose. It stops the reel from back spooling, and we're just going to go clean that up as well. So from a maintenance standpoint, this is not very difficult. It's got a stainless steel shaft onto the pressed metal gearing. The gears are in good shape. The anti-reverse dog is there, and as I mentioned, there is a problem with this in that this is not moving, so you can't go to free spool. And also this not only is missing its tab, but it seems to be stuck in place. So I guess if I really wanted to recondition it and I had the parts, I could drive this out and refresh that. I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this reel. So let's just service the side plate first. We're going to take a little bit of blue grease. I use a Penn Reels blue grease for that, precision reel grease. I'm going to put a little bit on the anti-reverse dog, a little bit into the bushing, and then we're going to do the same thing on this shaft. We're going to come back and just probably overkill. It probably hasn't seen grease in a while. And then because this is driving that spool shaft, I'll make sure we have the grease on that as well. Okay, I'm going to just set those aside in my parts bucket for now. I'll put the main gear back into here. and I want to make sure that I get that anti-reverse dog seated there. So there's a little spring attachment there, and if you just push that out, there we go, we should be seated on that. There, we're okay, so we're clicking away there. And we can actually mount the handle back in at this point, so why don't we go do that just to make sure that everything is held together the right way. There we go. All right, so this side plate is done. Let's put the grease off to the side. Let's go over and pay our attention up top here. We'll see what's going on the reel here. Like so many of these reels, there's a stop here. There's a cross screw into the spool shaft. That spool shaft is held on that cross wind block. And if you remove this screw, like we just did there, we can pull that assembly up. That'll give us access to the bottom here. We want to clean this up. We have the old grease in here. So I use a cotton swab for that. And again, I'm seeing clean grease here. I'm not seeing anything that has a lot of metal shavings or anything. So it says that for the most part this reel hasn't been abused. It's suffered the wear of the ages. The paint is a little bit chipped. I don't know what caused the problem with the anti-reverse mechanism, but at this point it's not worth fixing, and we'll just clean this up and re-lube this when we put that back together again. So just get the dirt off of that at this point. But what we're seeing here is a solid reel that's indicative of the time, and we're going to just take this rotor off, and to do that I use a socket wrench because it's a deep fall here. Wrong side. Let's try this one. There we go. I guess you could use a 12 millimeter straight up. And this one also is going to have the reverse set. It's going to go as if you were tightening it to loosen it. It's a left thread instead of a right thread. Once we get that off, we should see that there's just a bushing under here. I don't anticipate seeing a ball bearing in here just because of the nature of these reels. And we don't. We just have this is your pinion gear, so I want to clean that up. That's why that came out the way it did. Get the old grease off that. Again, we'll put some blue grease on there to freshen this up. So I do this a lot. I call these the price of tuition. I go out and I'll find a flea market, garage sale, yard sale, whatever the terms of the local event is. And I'll come back, I'll take a look, see what I can find, and just take them apart to see what's going on with the reel itself. Underneath it's pretty standard. There's a little bit of dirt in there, so again, let's go ahead and grab one of those cotton swabs and see if we can't pull that off, which we can. Also want to make sure that that little lever there, which is the bail trip, is lubricated, so I'll use some WD-40 on that. I'll just wipe the excess out with that cotton swab, getting the dirt off. Now there's paint corrosion on this. There's nothing that can be done for that at this point. Alright, so we'll put that back in, and then there was a key set here that sits on this little indentation in the spool. We saw that with the interceptor, so that seems to be a Japanese engineering type of a thing. Then we're going to go ahead and put that nut back on. So again, because of the reverse thread, you would be working against, so you would go counterclockwise as opposed to clockwise to set this up, and you want to make sure that that's the way you're set on your ratchet as well. Okay, that's good. And we'll go reassemble this now. So we have the spool assembly here. We cleaned up our cross block. And our crossbar has that little thing. So this is a good time to tell you, if you haven't worked on a reel like this, I certainly haven't. If you a little bit nervous about doing this, if you haven't kept track or you have trouble keeping track of what you're doing, then I suggest you take pictures along the way. Pictures are a great way to chart your progress in terms of what it is that you're doing, and it's a wonderful bailout in the event that you forget where the pieces and parts go. So don't be afraid to use a camera. And you know, sometimes people say, well, you're not using one, but I am. I got the video recording here, and if I really did get stuck, I could go back to that. So we're going to just reassemble this shaft. And I always have problems, it seems, with these little screws, so please bear with me. There'd be an easier way, right? Not for me. I think we got it. Okay, here we go. We got that part. So we lubricated the main pinion gear. We've lubricated the shaft. We're going to put a little bit of lubrication on the cross wind block here now. Then we've got to line up the stud with the cross wind assembly, and then line up the case, which is there. I'm going to put those 3 screws back in, and then we'll just go up top and look at the drags. I noticed when I tested this reel while I was buying it, because you want to do a thorough check when you're buying a used reel. Don't assume that it works. Don't assume that there's nothing wrong with it. That's where I noticed that we're missing that anti-reverse throw down below here. And you know, I paid $5 for the reel, so I really wasn't going to haggle the seller down any more than that, because I knew that I wasn't going to use it anyway. I was just going to take it apart and see how it worked. But you know, don't be surprised don't be surprised by surprises. Do your work ahead of time as you go and buy these reels for repair or for use. Make sure you check everything out. I checked the drags out on the spool to make sure that the spool was tight. Sometimes you'll find that drag knob up top there is cracked. Sometimes you'll find out it's the wrong one. So don't assume anything, particularly if somebody's got it on a table at a yard sale or a flea market. There's a reason why that reel hasn't been used. In this case, it probably hasn't been used just because it's an old one, and somebody figured that the newer reels are better. I don't think we've seen that from what we did here. Yeah, we got a nice smooth operating reel here. That's nice. I know the bail worked because I tried the bail when tested. So let's just take a look at this this spool assembly up top here. It's a traditional assembly. It has a spring-loaded set of bail drags inside the spool. We remove the spring clip. Again, I put that in there. And then there should be a series of felt washers, which there are. We have a felt washer. Felt washers get oil, so we'll make sure we oil these up. I use a Real X oil for these. I'm just going to make sure that it's enough oil to keep it flexible. So we'll set that back into the piece. Then the metal washer comes in, and there's another one that's a felt washer. We'll make sure that gets nice oil on it as well. And there's a metal washer up top here, and then the spring goes back in to seal that off. Now, the spring really doesn't have much of a function other than to hold the drag stack together for that button. And we'll just go ahead and put that back on here. Put the button back on. And so what have we learned? We learned that this Fiord reel is a Fiord Gold Star 360. Made in Japan, probably in the early 60s, maybe a little bit later. Looks like a Mitchell, functions like a Mitchell. Has pretty much a straightforward gearing, straightforward spool assembly. Solid performer, well-made material, nice body and casing, a little bit of paint wear, which you would expect after 30 years or whatever the age of this particular one is, probably 40 years now. And nice reel for the time. So built as a competitor to a Mitchell 300, still would function today. We don't have the free spool, so we can't backpedal this one, but that's okay. Even the reels that are made with the instant anti-reverse today don't have that. So I hope you enjoyed watching this and learning a little bit about this particular reel. If you liked it, please indicate that on the YouTube screen. If you want to see more of these, please subscribe, as I post frequently. Next up, I'm going to do a head-in. I've had one of these in a pile for a while. I'm going to be doing the Head-in 260R. It's a ball bearing reel, also made in Japan. And we'll see what makes that one go in the next video. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for watching the video.